Hello, welcome back to Perspectiva. Now, China is facing another major weather emergency as the Typhoon Evacuations has made landfall, forcing the evacuation of nearly 2 million people and disrupting transport, businesses and daily life. Well, the powerful storm, stretching nearly 1,000 kilometers across at its widest point, first struck the coastal city of Taizhou on Saturday evening before making a second landfall just hours later. Now, although the typhoon has weakened from its earlier super typhoon status to just a severe tropical storm, forecasters warn it still carries an enormous amount of moisture capable of triggering dangerous flooding and landslides. Now, authorities have evacuated more than 1.7 million residents from Zhejiang province, with thousands more expected to move to safety in neighbouring regions. Now, schools, workplaces and outdoor activities have all been suspended, while around 400 flights and dozens of train services have been cancelled as officials work to minimise the impact. Now, the city of Wenzhou, which is home to around 10 million people, is among the hardest hit areas. Residents describe terrifying conditions as storms and winds tear through neighbourhoods. One resident also said that roof tiles and tree branches were falling, saying the experience was frightening for families sheltering indoors. Now, the storm centre has moved towards Hangzhou city, and meteorologists expect it to continue travelling northwest into Anhui province before reaching the northern Yellow Sea in the coming days. Now, authorities continue to monitor the situation very closely, warning that heavy rainfall could cause flash floods and landslides. Now, before reaching China, the typhoon swept across the western Pacific, battering Guam and the northern Mariana Islands with winds of up to 290 kilometers per hour. It later brushed Japan's southern islands and passed near Taiwan, bringing torrential rain, power outages, flight cancellations and large-scale evacuations. Now, the storm has already left a deadly trail all across the region. In the Philippines, landslides triggered by heavy rainfall have claimed at least 17 lives. Fortunately, Japan and Taiwan have not reported any fatalities, although both did experience widespread disruption. Now, China's latest weather crisis comes just days after the typhoon Maisak struck southern parts of the country, killing at least 39 people and devastating agricultural land and even triggering rare tornadoes in central Hubei province. Now, with two powerful storms hitting in just a single week, emergency services remain on high alert as millions of people await improving weather conditions. Well, to help us better understand the growing impact of extreme weather and climate change, we're joined by the climate expert, Mariam Shabir Abbasi. Thank you so much and welcome to Perspectiva. So nearly 2 million people have been evacuated. How significant is this evacuation and what does it tell us about China's disaster preparedness?
Well, if we look at the climate disasters which has happened in the region in the past, I saw China more prepared, and they have taken the early warning for this Typhoon Bowie more seriously, and they relied on scientific data. They did timely evacuations, they shut down schools, trains, they canceled flights. Although economic impact is there, but they were able to, save a lot of lives because of this, their precautionary measures instead of reactionary measures, which we see in many Asian countries, where governments and responding institutions, they respond like in panic once the climate disaster hit. But in case of China, they were more prepared to save lives, although they were stretched because of two typhoon like striking them in two different parts of China. But they were able to, save a lot of lives, although there is like damage to infrastructure, and there might be like deaths in thousands if they didn't do precautionary measures. So I would give like 100 out of 100 to them for preparing timely and for responding to this early warning of the typhoon which was developing since the beginning of the July, and it was forecasted because of El Nino impacts as well. The conditions were quite favorable for like more intense kind of typhoon in that region.
Although the typhoon has weakened from a super typhoon to a severe tropical storm, experts still describe it as highly dangerous. Why can a weaker storm still cause widespread destruction?
Because of the reason that this typhoon, though it's not that strong anymore, but it's still holding a lot of moisture. So when it moves away from the center where it got the intensity, although the energy is low, but as it's in moving towards inland, it can cause more havoc and more rainfall, because lots of regions already are experiencing more rainfall, and the soil is very saturated. It can't absorb more moisture. So it's going to cause like a lot of rain, a lot of landslides, flooding in rivers. So it still holds the potential because of holding a lot of moisture, and because of the favorable conditions, as I mentioned. Because it can hold up to, in the areas where it is moving right now, it can hold up to 7% of more moisture. And with each degree rise in temperature, which is like in Pacific Oceans because of El Nino, it is holding a lot of moisture than usual. So it still has potential to damage a lot of places because of this capacity of the holding moisture. And also the areas in inland, which has already less capacity to welcome more water or to absorb more water in terms of like vegetation or soil cover, or even reservoirs in those areas are already saturated.
China has now also been hit by two major typhoons within a single week. Is this an unusual weather pattern, or are such events becoming more common?
Well, I wouldn't say that it's unusual, but as you see, with the changing climate, the conditions are becoming more favorable for such kind of typhoons. So we can't say for sure at this stage that with the passage of time and over the years there would be more typhoons, but we can safely say that the intensity of holding more moisture and the intensity with more wind speed, that should be expected in the future as well. And because of the El Nino impacts, it can hold more moisture in next year as well, and it can create more rainfall and more flooding, and it can fill more reservoirs, and it can bring like more devastation, especially to coastal communities because of the wind speed. So it's not that you could expect like more frequent typhoons, but you can expect more intense typhoons in the future as well, because of changing climate and because of the favorable conditions in a lot of areas around the world.
So scientists have warned that climate change is contributing to more intense and to wetter tropical storms. To what extent could climate change be influencing events like this typhoon?
Well, like I said, the moist air, the warm ocean water, and of course the low wind, shear. These are some of the very favorable conditions for a very strong typhoon. And we see that because of changing climate and because of the reduced capacity of the oceans to absorb more carbon dioxide and greenhouse gases, and also in the atmosphere, the capacity of greenhouse gases, it's increasing in terms of quantity, I would say. The conditions are quite favorable, to develop these kind of typhoons, which can cause devastating impacts, could displace like millions of communities around coastal areas. So it's the favorable conditions because of global warming, and because of more greenhouse gases and increased temperatures and more moisture holding capacity in the atmosphere. These are some of the favorable, kind of substrate, I would say, in terms of chemistry to really form a strong kind of typhoon to affect a lot of communities around the world.
And Mayam, the storm has affected several countries like China, Japan, Taiwan, and the Philippines. What does this tell us about the need for regional cooperation in disaster preparedness and emergency response?
Well, this is very pertinent question, I would say, because lots of regions, in terms of climate change or flooding or air pollution, they don't need geographical borders to stop somewhere. So these impacts, these kind of climate change disasters, they affect regionally. So in terms of regional cooperation, we need like more climate diplomacy at a lot of levels between different countries. We need data sharing between a lot of countries. We need, I would say, sharing of early warning systems. We need to learn from China that how to respond to early warning system more seriously in terms of precautionary measures than reactionary measures. And there are lots of like lesson learns from a lot of countries. We can like positive lessons which countries can share with each other. They can share data to incorporate into planning in a lot of countries. They can share that how they use technology, of course, to provide shelters, to transport people, and to reduce like harmful impact in a lot of regions. And also, because of these regional disasters, the supply chains are also affected. So they need to share information with each other to really make it less worse, I would say.
And authorities suspended schools, cancelled hundreds of flights and halted train services before the storm arrived. Just how important are these early preventative measures in reducing casualties?
Well, I would say there's a lot of life economic impacts in China right now and the Philippines and the other countries which it has struck. And in Philippines there were some deaths as well. But the good side of this is, of course, that many people were saved timely, and that was because of having shelters timely, transporting people timely, taking early warnings more seriously, and this could have been a massive disasters in terms of deaths. But China did a really great job, to evacuate people, although there is disruption in their daily lives, and there's a lot of damage in terms of like bridges and schools and the infrastructural damage, I would say. But at least the losses to life is not being reported yet. So it's great that they have managed to save people, at least, which should be priority of every government in any climate disaster, I would say.
Mayam, China was still recovering from Typhoon Maisak when Typhoon Barak. How challenging is it for emergency services to respond to multiple major disasters in such a short period?
Yeah, I mean, the multiple disasters within a week time can be quite challenging for any government to respond to, and it can overstretch the people and responders involving in evacuation services. It can have a lot of impact, on infrastructure, which it had, in both eastern and southern parts of China, and it can trigger, a lot of like it triggered actually a lot of landslides and lots of rains in many regions, and of course, one disaster already got their reservoirs filled with water. It was lots of soil erosion. The saturated soil, it was already saturated and cannot hold like more water into it because there was already one event, and then Bavi came. It kind of multiplied the impact, and it's kind of, I would say, compounding and cascading effect that has added to the existing, kind of crisis in China. And their resources are overstretched, their responders are overstretched, but still they managed to do something because they took early warning. Their weather systems and satellites provided them data for early warning, and they managed well in time, despite having this cascading effect, which could have devastating impact, in major parts of China.
Mayam, beyond the immediate human impact, what long-term economic consequences can repeated typhoons have on infrastructure, agriculture and local communities?
Absolutely. Any climate disasters, including these two typhoons, have impacted already China, economically. There's impact on schools, on bridges, their trains are halted, their flights got cancelled. So it definitely have an economic impact on China. And of course, the agriculture impact is there because the flooding and landsliding, it has damaged, a lot of houses as well. But there can't be any other way, we know that. So these climate disasters around the world, and even in China as well, is causing a lot of economic losses, and there would be more economic losses around the world because of flooding, heat waves, more rainfall, air pollution, you name, like any disaster. There were experimental facilities where there were like venomous scales, snakes, and those also, there were instances of biting people as well. So this has like impact on research centers too, not just the agriculture that involves resources too, and economical resources. So there's definitely this compounding effect has impact on lots of different areas and sectors, including health sector in China as well, when it comes to economical crisis under these climate disasters.
And finally, Mayam, as the extreme weather events do become more frequent all across the world, what lessons should other countries learn from China's response to this typhoon?
Well, the impressive thing about China during this typhoon is, of course, how they responded and took early warning seriously. And I think I'm repeating this third time because it's very significant, and it's very important to understand that when governments decide to respond timely to early warnings and take science, as a reality instead of denying it, you got to save a lot of lives, human lives, animals, livestock. Although the damage in terms of economy is there, but at least you're saving human lives. We need to learn from China that, we need to respond to early warning system timely, and we should not be moving towards reactionary measures, but towards precautionary measures, the way China responded to this typhoon. And of course, the scientific data and early warnings, it was also very strong with China. They had time to actually plan it. And the coordination between institutions, the southern and northern parts, the coordination between them, the shelters where displaced communities were housed, the food supplies timely, the health responders, they were responding timely, their technology, their resources, everything is very well coordinated. So this is a perfect example for the world to learn actually how to respond before disaster struck. So the proper planning is something which governments should really, really learn from China from this Typhoon Bavi.
Mayam, thank you so much. Appreciate it lots. Well, that is all for today's edition of Perspectiva. Our thanks go to our guests for sharing their views on the death threats to the Indian Muslim female judge, and for shedding light on the rescue operations in China after a powerful typhoon hit many areas. Well, please, for more stories and updates, follow us on social media or visit Asia One News TV. My name is Tom Philpot. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.